Okay, this is going to be a series of videos, so the one you're watching is only one of a series, and I do encourage you to watch the rest of them. Also, I encourage you to watch the full-length webumentary titled Global Warming, Myth or Reality, A Skeptic's View. It goes through the entire science behind global warming, but with this series, we're going to pick and choose some interesting pieces, and we're going to ask the viewer, does global warming pass the stink test? We're going to take a look at the science, and I want you to ask yourself, does that even make sense? Most importantly, ask yourself, if a big oil company produced a report like that, wouldn't the environmentalists be going ape nuts? Because what we're going to do is we're going to take a hard look at the science, and then once again, just ask yourself, does this pass the stink test? Okay, one of the arguments you'll always hear the environmentalists say is, well, what's the harm? What's the harm of doing these environmentally friendly things? Well, there's a huge harm involved with it. For one, go out there and try to find an estimate of what it would cost to abide by the Kyoto Treaty. I've found estimates ranging from 12 to 300 billion per year. This is huge amounts of money that could be spent otherwise elsewhere, like educating our children, reforming Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. The other damaging thing is not only is there a cost as far as real dollars, as far as tax revenues and lost production, California is thinking of suing 6 auto manufacturers over greenhouse gases. That could cost a huge number of jobs and further degrade our industrial base. Worst of all, however, is these union members that staunchly support the Democrats. They are literally risking their lives supporting these type of policies. I'm sorry, not lives, but livelihoods. Okay, what else is the harm? In Al Gore's movie, he points out that we have a population boom going on. This is a chart that he has in his book, and it shows population in the world's going through the roof. Now, there's 2 options you can go about this. You can either deny it and fight it, or you can sit there and say, these are the situations we're given. How are we going to adjust to accommodate this new number of people? Are we going to basically try to adapt, or are we going to try to prevent, slow down, and stop? Well, Al Gore's solution clearly is to stop global warming and to decrease atmospheric CO2. That is his solution. The problem is that, if you talk about models, the atmospheric level of CO2 has nothing to do with the population growth rate. Okay? So what happens when you pull atmospheric CO2 out of the air? Nothing. The birth rate is going to keep going. So you're still going to have the same number of people you want to feed. Now, while there is no direct correlation between CO2 and temperature, as you remember, there's an inverse there's a correlation between temperature and CO2. There is a direct correlation that nobody would argue with, and that's that the higher level of atmospheric CO2, within reason, the higher the yield of crops. Now, here are some charts showing that. As you increase atmospheric CO2, the crop yield increases. Now, assuming we do have this increased population, what do you want to do? Do you want to decrease crop yields? Because A, if we do, you're still going to have to feed those people. That just simply means you're going to need to plow, plant, fertilize, herbicide, drain wetlands, cut down more forests to plant a greater acreage. To me, the environmental solution would be increase crop yields, so you have to use less land for farming. Al Gore's a solution of pulling atmospheric CO2 is environmentally unfriendly because A, you'd simply get lower crop yields, and B, you're going to have to farm more land. Okay, worst of all, think about what happens if we do decrease crop yields. Prices go higher, right? Because no matter how you look at it, decreasing crop yields, either through you're having to farm more land, which costs more, or what, costs of food are going to go higher. So the alternative, if you follow Al Gore's approach, is basically starvation, mass starvation around the world. If you go back and take a look, during the little ice age periods, people starved. During the periods of interglacial warming periods, people thrived. So, the alternative global warming is global cooling. And like I said, people starve and die during little ice ages. They thrive during global warming periods. So if anything, we should be appreciating the environment that we've got now, because sooner or later, the next ice age is coming, regardless of how many SUVs we drive. Okay, but once again, Al Gore's solution starves people. Adapting to global warming will feed people. You choose. Well, you may say, well, that's a bit extreme. Well, no, not really, because we have a real-world example going on right now as far as what happens with these environmental policies and food prices. As you know, environmentalists have been pushing ethanol. Well, lo and behold, look what happened to the price of corn once they've got this ethanol law passed. Ethanol, as you can see, at the beginning of 2006 was below $200. This is a futures quote. Right now, it is over $3.75. There's almost been a 50% increase in the price of corn because of this ethanol law, because we're trying to do this environmentally friendly energy source. It is driving the price of corn through the roof. Corn, by the way, is a food. So what we're doing is we're taking money out, or taking food out of the mouths of people and putting it and making it into ethanol so that we can drive our cars. Worst of all, you can't transport ethanol through pipelines. You have to transport it through trucks. So we're even having to pollute more of the environment because we're carting this stuff around in all these trucks because we can't use the more efficient transportation of pipelines. Worse even yet is look at where ethanol comes from. While we produce a great deal here in the U.S., the world's largest producer happens to be Brazil. They've bought into this environmentally friendly energy source in a big way. So Brazil produces is the largest producer of ethanol in the world. Would you want to know how they produce ethanol in Brazil? They cut down the rainforest to grow sugarcane. Now, if that isn't the most insane environmental policy I've ever heard, I don't know what is. But as you can see, these environmentalists, they almost every time you look into it, there's almost always an unintended consequence. And here's the greatest example. In order to produce ethanol, in order to abide by this Kyoto Treaty or this fear of carbon dioxide, which, by the way, when you burn ethanol, what do you get? CO2. When you ferment ethanol, what do you get? CO2. Ethanol is a huge CO2 producer. So up here, once again, you wonder about who benefits from this fear of global warming? Our corn farmers do, right? Brazil does. But once again, what are the benefits? You're paying a huge cost for no benefit.